Welcome, everybody, to the do's and don'ts of beginning your medical medium healing journey. I wanted to do this presentation because I know starting uh, this journey can be absolutely overwhelming at times because there's so much information. It's also a shift in the way we think about things. We're told that, doctors know everything. This is the way it is. This is the way it's always been. Science and research are king, blah, blah, blah. So um, it's a mind shift when you start delving into the medical medium information. It's a little like it kind of jolts you at first because you're having to relearn how your view of the world is. Almost it makes you question almost everything. So I know for me it was quite an adjustment, and I had to almost submerge myself in the information to start getting it in through repetition, because for whatever reason, hearing it or reading it once, especially early on in my journey, because I was so brain fogged, I couldn't like really process. I had to sometimes reread passages more than once, like maybe sometimes up to 3 times in a row, and before it finally got into my brain, so I understood what exactly he was saying. So anyway, so I just wanted to sort of help you guys, bridge the gap with all of that, the newness of it all. Um, I think that I'm so excited that you all are here because, first and foremost, it tells me that you have opened at least the possibility that you can heal yourself. And that little opening is right where we need to expand and grow and expound upon, because that is the key of everything I'm going to say to you tonight. The biggest takeaway I want you to take from this is that you can heal your body. The human body is such a miracle. God has given us so many abilities, things that we take for granted. We don't have to think about breathing. We don't have to think about our heart beating. It just does it. So the body is so intelligent, and as many people who have studied it and tried to learn everything about it, the doctors, the science, they still don't know everything. And so for me, I just felt like I had to take a leap of faith and say, okay, so far what I've seen of the doctors, they can't really help me, and they don't have the answers. So I felt I had to just maybe think outside the box on this one. So I hope that you guys will at least pretend, suspend your disbelief, whatever, however you can mentally get there, because that is your opening to healing, just the belief. So I want to just do a little exercise with you. I want you all to just close your eyes for a minute. Take a breath in on the count of 4. And exhale. Now I want you to picture what it would feel like to be healed, to have your body back to full functioning. Think of all the things you will be able to do. Think of how excited and how wonderful it will feel. It's amazing. It is amazing. Okay, you can open your eyes now if you want to. For me, this is still just a miraculous thing for me every day that I wake up and I'm able to use my voice. For those of you who don't know my story, about 3 years ago, my life changed dramatically. I had been experiencing some symptoms. I had been experiencing some vocal difficulties. I was a professional singer prior to getting super sick. And I was noticing some weirdness with my voice when I would go to work, but and did all the testing with the ear, nose, and throat doctors, the scopes, the allergy testing, the CAT scan of my sinuses, blah blah blah, and they were sort of stunned. They couldn't quite they figure it out. They were like, we don't know if it's spasmodic dysphonia yet. We're not sure, but we're going to refer you to a movement disorder clinic in Gainesville and see if they can help you. And I said, well, at that point, so what would be the treatment? What would they do for me if I went there and did that? And they said, well, we could try some Botox injections and offer you some maybe immunosuppressant drugs to see if we could stop the spasms that are kind of happening, because I was just starting to experience like a slight spasm in my neck. So flash forward, that was prior to a very traumatic event happening in my life. And when that happened, everything started for me in terms of all of these neurological issues. I could no longer speak normally. I had a very strained, choked voice, and it was very like I couldn't project it, and it would spasm. I had a constant spasm from my right eye all the way down my right side of my body, down to my right hip, and it was horrible because that's all I could feel and think about all day long was this spasm. Whenever I tried to speak and talk to people, I would be overwhelmed and start getting a very bad migraine and like a nausea that happened and a dizziness. My brain fog would get even worse. So along with the voice dysfunction came like a whole host of neurological symptoms for me. So I had like just a general dizziness and really debilitating brain fog. I had the spasm I told you about. I had this like very sensitive to lights, sound, and temperature. I was constantly getting freezing cold and overactive bladder, dry eyes, dry mouth, like a little tingly weirdness in my face, like a slight Bell's palsy in the right side of my face. Multitude of symptoms that were not there prior to this event happening, and then of course the voice dysfunction. Prior to that, of course, I was like everybody else. I had been collecting symptoms, had chronic heartburn for years, had horrible allergies and chronic sinus infections. I was taking so much over-the-counter medication every day. It was not funny. I recognize my hand in collecting all these toxins now when I looking back on it. Basically, any illness that we experience is a toxic stew, a combination of all of the collected pathogens and all of the toxins, all of the environmental things, all of the stress. You just sort of collect things and they stay in your body for years and years and years. And eventually the body is like, okay, I am just like, whoop, done, can't process it anymore. So I encourage you as you begin this journey to start thinking in terms of a cup of water. So you figure that your capacity for these toxins, you can do it for a long time. And especially if you come into this world without many, because we all are born with them, we inherit them from our parents. So if you're lucky enough to come into this world with kind of a clean slate, you can keep filling that cup for a pretty long time without it overflowing and causing issues. But for a lot of us, especially people who have gotten some neurological stuff going on and Those types of illnesses, to me, indicate a higher level of toxicity. So, unfortunately, that probably means we were born with some as well as collecting them, or if we were unlucky enough to live somewhere, like near Chernobyl or, somewhere that's like got these environmental things that are going to drastically make our health decline. So that brings me to the unforgiving four. So basically, we're taught that genes are faulty or our body starts attacking itself. And when in fact, every illness that we can think of is, except for mesothelioma, which is caused by asbestos, but all of the rest of the illnesses, including birth defects, including all of it, are a combination of pathogens, which are viruses and bacteria, or heavy metals, mercury, cadmium, copper, aluminum. There's lead, there's many. Radiation, which of course we're exposed to every day with these electronics, give us a nice dose every time we are on our cell phones or, all of that good stuff. Go to the doctor for an x-ray or, some dental work. The radiation plays a part. And then the fourth culprit, which you might not be aware of, is DDT that's still lingering in the soil. And I know in the United States, DDT has been banned for a number of years, but it's still in the soil. It's still in our environment. It even still comes over from other countries that still are using DDT currently in their, it just blows over in the weather patterns and then rains down on us. So, we're getting all of this crazy exposure without realizing it. And so every symptom, every condition that we have is some sort of little combination of, could be all four things, or it could be, two different viruses. For instance, in my case, I'm pretty sure I have an Epstein-Barr, at least one, which I probably have more than one, judging from how many times I actually had mono as a young person, and shingles, and also strep. So I have a combination of all three of those things for sure, in addition to heavy metals like mercury. So when you get SD, the spasmodic dysphonia, or any other neurological stuff going on, it almost always has mercury in the equation. So mercury and one of the strains, another thing that science doesn't know is that there are more than 60 strains of Epstein-Barr virus. So it's not just one, it's 60. So each strain has their preferred place it likes to live. So, let's say thyroid disorders, hypothyroidism, or Hashimoto's disease. Those are stage 3 Epstein-Barr virus. Now, everybody with Epstein-Barr virus doesn't develop a thyroid problem, but in the particular strains that really like to nest in the thyroid, that's where that manifests. And then, of course, the neurological stuff is stage 4 Epstein-Barr. So, and that's when it attacks the central nervous system. So anything neurological is stage 4 Epstein-Barr. So I'm just kind of giving you the basics. Of course, as you start reading this information or listening to the podcast or whatever, you're going to hear it over and over again. But of course, I think it's so important to understand it on such a deep level, because this is the belief you can heal, and then the knowledge of what is really going on are going to be your keys to sticking with the program here, because making changes is not easy. We as humans, we don't like change. I mean, let's face it, it's scary. So we like to cling on to what we know, and we like to kind of do what we've always done. But, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. So, sadly, we have to walk through that threshold of change and be willing to at least try it on for a while. I always thought to myself in my healing journey, I you know, I'm just going to try this for a while and see what happens. And then if it doesn't work, then I can always go back to the doctor and try again some of those other things that they offered me. So for me, I just, I didn't want to confuse it with mixing and mingling other protocols, other people's ideas of what I should be doing. I tried to pretty much stick with medical medium stuff only to my best ability. I realized when I began, of course, I didn't do it perfectly. I didn't know any better. Um, I was fortunate enough about 4 or 5 months after that big traumatic event happened. My friend Julia, who's here tonight, Julia, she's the one who sent me the radio show on celery juice. So um, I listened to that radio show, and for whatever reason, it really resonated with me. I was like, "Yep, I know I've had Epstein-Barr. I It sounds like it is super like on point with what I would feel it was a reasonable explanation for what's going on here." So I was like, yeah, I mean, I'm going to give this a shot. So in a day, I had been previously doing a ketogenic diet as I was descending into illness, not realizing that I was, again, putting another nail in my own coffin with that. So, anyway, where was I? I'm sorry, I get distracted. Um, so where was I? I said we had the celery juice like thing, and it seemed like a logical thing for me. And I went from ketogenic to vegan in a day. Now, you don't have to be vegan in order to heal with this information, but from what I could glean, before I even got my hands on the books, I was searching YouTube and looking for any videos or searching out any information I could, find from other people who had been using this information to heal themselves. And I just sort of put two and two together, tried to kind of glean what they had been doing. So I just, like, in a day, stopped my high protein, total animal products, lifestyle. Of course, heavy on the alcohol, heavy on the caffeine. Um, and I switched over. Now, I didn't manage to get rid of everything right away. After about a week or so, I did weed out the coffee. And then after 2 months went by, I completely took alcohol out as well as any of the foods that are not productive. So it took me a minute at first I had the mentality of, well, let's just have a cheat day. Once a week, I'll be able to eat and do whatever I want. And then the rest of the time I'll be really good. But I did realize after a couple of months that wasn't pushing me forward. So I realized I needed to go all in, but that's okay. Because I don't recommend going all in right away anyway. So we're going to definitely cover that in some of the don'ts of our program later. Um, so, what are the foods that feed these viruses that are often at the root cause of what we have going on? There are 7 foods that are like the big ones, and the biggest of those are eggs, dairy, gluten. So those are the first 3 you may want to have a look at and see about eliminating. But then also there's soy, corn, pork, and canola oil. So all of those together are the ones that the viruses love to eat and keep them strong. The thing that I always think about is every time I eat, I'm either feeding myself or I'm feeding the viruses that are making me sick. So I'm like, I'm not going to feed them if I can avoid it. Because let's face it, I had to have my life back. I could not. I was on my knees. I was debilitated. So I was so fatigued and had so many neurological symptoms, and I was so frustrated by not being able to communicate. I felt isolated. I felt just like my spirit had been crushed. So I realize now that was a blessing for me because I was willing to do whatever it took to make it happen for myself. I could not continue living willfully the way I was doing. So I was like, I knew I needed to make a drastic change in order to try and save myself. So it seemed like the right path, and I just, people would bring other ideas to me, and I would be like, yeah, that's great. I will maybe look at that at some point, but for right now, I can't confuse this modality because I don't know then if I start bringing other stuff in, if what's working, what isn't working, why it isn't working. There's so many levers, and the human body is so complex. There's so many aspects. So already just staying within the medical media and protocols, sometimes it's hard to identify what is exactly helping, what isn't helping, and so yeah, it's important to kind of stick with one thing just to keep it easier to assimilate, just so we can kind of figure out what's what with that. So we've established the seven foods we want to avoid eating if at all possible. The foods that we want to be eating are number one. Well, celery juice probably gets the number one slot just because it is valuable on so many levels. It provides us the minerals that we need for building our neurotransmitters back, our enzymes, our hormones, our digestive juices, all our HCl. All of that stuff is made out of minerals. And celery juice has a unique blend of minerals and mineral salts that actually then, on the other side of the coin, also kill pathogens on contact. So when the celery juice goes into your body, if it comes in contact with any pathogens, it penetrates the outer membrane of the virus itself or the bacteria. And so without that protective coating on there, they become very vulnerable and they start to die. So celery juice on contact is like, yeah, like I think of those old Raid commercials, Raid. Celery juice, I always visualize when I'm drinking my celery juice that it's like stamping out those bugs as it's going in there. So that's like a super thing. It also has a vitamin C that is easy to assimilate. Your liver doesn't have to convert it the way our livers have to usually bless every vitamin that we eat in foods. It has to methylate and change it into a usable form of that vitamin so that your body can then absorb it. So the vitamin C in celery juice is unique, and it doesn't have to go through that process. So that also makes it super accessible and like valuable because it's not putting a strain. It's not giving another to-do list for the poor old liver, which it has to do so many jobs, over 2,000 jobs. So it's that poor guy. I mean, my goodness, you got to send your liver some love because he's been working hard for you all these years. That's the thing. And he just got tired and said, I just can't do it anymore. And so, we got to give him some help now. That's the key. So anyway, cheers to some celery juice. I'm going to take a sip. So celery juice is number one. Then, of course, fruits are going to be your most powerful detoxifier. again, we are brainwashed by doctors, media, researchers to think that all sugar is created equal. That the sugar that we eat in a candy bar is equal to the sugar that we eat in an apple or a banana. And that is just not true. Our whole body runs on glucose. We need a steady flow of glucose for our cells to metabolize, to live, to do what they have to do. They need the energy from the glucose. So fruit is an ideal way to get that, because not only does it have a very usable form of glucose, but also it has so many nutrients, has all these vitamins and phytochemicals and antioxidants and all of that stuff. And the great thing about fruit is, in addition, is that it's attached to glucose already. And in order for a nutrient, a mineral, or a vitamin to get into the cell, to be accepted by a cell, it has to be in conjunction with glucose. The cell will not accept just like if you took a handful of supplements and swallow it down without any glucose in your system, it'll just go right through you and it'll never be absorbed at all. We absolutely need the glucose, because then we need the insulin to be the key and open the cell so that both things can go in, the nutrients as well as the glucose. So that the fruit is absolutely your best friend. Specifically, wild blueberries are a superfood. They detoxify metals. They start loosening, the metals out of the brain. They are an adaptive type of a food because they have grown in the wild and had to endure such hardship. They have adaptive qualities that our cells then absorb. As we are absorbing the nutrients from them, our cells can become more resilient. So if we're sick, our cells are struggling. We're having a rough time. So we got to do whatever we can to fortify those cells so that they can become strong again and rebuild and regenerate and rejuvenate. So wild blueberries are like an amazing way to do that. The third type of food that I would say are like so healing are leafy greens, because again, the minerals in all those leafy greens, in the spinach, in the romaine lettuce, all the lettuces, kale, all of it. The minerals are, again, a key component. So we need not only the glucose, but we need the minerals, because without the minerals, then the glucose will build the cell up, but the cell can't manufacture the things it needs to make the processes in our bodies work properly. So we need the minerals from the leafy greens. So I know a lot of people who are walking this path do a pound of greens a day. So I haven't quite got to that point yet, but I do try and sneak lots of leafy greens in everywhere I can, into my smoothies, and on top of things that are cooked, I'll just sprinkle on some greens on top. Of course, a big salad or spinach soup every day. Always, always, always lots of greens. That's especially for neurological stuff too. Anything neurological means you need extra minerals and mineral salts, because our neurotransmitters are so damaged. Our brains use twice as many minerals than a normal healthy brain. So if you have neurological issues, you have some damage, which means that you need to feed it extra well so that it can do the functions that you need it to do. So mineral salts for sure. And of course, then in addition to those three, the herbs that we can grow so easily in our own windowsills or backyard, those have some potent healing powers. Like, gosh, they're almost all antiviral, antibacterial, mostly antifungal. So anything that you have going on in your body, if you can just add some herbs into it. Of course, we know cilantro is a superstar of the whole herbal family because it also helps us escort heavy metals out of our bodies. So that is like a huge one. Of course, it's in the heavy metal detox smoothie. But you can add cilantro to your salads. You can add it to on top of whatever cooked food you eat. So that's a superstar. Then finally, wild foods are the other category that help like propel healing forward. That's like aloe vera. So all of these types of foods in combination with each other have their own little superpowers, and you want to make sure that you're including as many of them as possible every day. So we've covered the foods not to eat. We've covered the foods to eat. So next, I would say on the docket is to talk about hydration, because hydration is going to be the mode that enables you to eliminate these pathogens and toxins from your body. And that is absolutely what we're trying to do, is we're trying to get them out of us, because then they can't hurt us anymore. But in order to do that, we have to give ample hydration. So we are chronically dehydrated in this world. I want to say country, but all across the world, we generally do not drink enough good sources of water. Number one, the water needs to be living water. So before, we have had chemically treated water plants and things like that when we just got water out of springs and babbling brooks and such back in the day. The water was full of life. It had minerals. It had like microorganisms in it that were beneficial to us. So when we would drink that water, our cells knew how to process it. Our bodies absorbed it. It was all good. But since now most of the water is polluted, natural water, and then again, most of us live in cities and places where our water is filtered and chemically treated. That adds another like element, which is sort of a chemically treated water has no more life left in it. So it's dead, quote unquote. So we need to make sure that we bring it back to life before we drink it. So it's very simple to do that. And of course, just squeezing lemon or lime or putting a slice or two of cucumber in the water helps bring it back, gives it the minerals back, and then again helps our bodies identify that water and can more easily use it versus the other water that we feed ourselves. So that's going to help our lymphatic system flush it out. It's going to thin our blood out, because part of the whole illness thing is thick blood, thick lymphatic system. The way I look at it is we are all sort of like at a standstill. We are like a toilet that is backed up and we cannot take any more on. We need to, plunge that baby and get it moving. So the hydration is the key to all of it. So we need the hydration in order to even begin moving things out, to set the stage to be able to move it out. Because once our blood is thinner, once our lymphatic fluid is less gelatinous, it can do its job. So we're going to work towards that. So of course, waking up every morning and having 16 to 32 ounces of lemon water is a mandatory way to start your day, because you immediately drink that down and you flush out all of the hard work that your liver did overnight, purging those toxins every night around 3 a.m. You might, I don't know if you're someone like me who always used to wake up around 3, like when I had some bad hot flashes and things going on. It was like clockwork, 3 a.m. witching hour. Like I would always be up for a couple hours. And it's because your liver heats up. And as it's trying to work hard, especially if it's overburdened and has too much to do, it it has to heat up to try and do its job. It's like an overheating engine. So anyway, in the morning, if we drink down that water first thing and then wait 20 to 30 minutes before we eat or drink anything else, that is like at least getting rid of a little bit of what we've taken on, in other words. So that's a great way to start. And of course, you want to continue as much as possible drinking that water all day. So I personally probably drink 128 ounces of lemon water every day. So, and another great way to get living water is, of course, juices, because the fruit and the vegetables are full of living water. So, even if you don't have a juicer and you haven't started doing that yet, or you don't want to, eating those fresh fruits and vegetables also fills your body with like lots of water. So that's a great way to do it as well. So when we cook vegetables, a lot of the water comes out of them, so they are not as hydrating of a food. Of course, when you start out, eating plenty of cooked vegetables is completely fine, and I would even recommend it, because eating all raw can be a little bit much for anybody to do in the beginning, because it's so detoxifying. So that is one of the things you can lean on as you try and start weeding out some of those the no foods. Potatoes, for instance, are my best friend. I have not managed to, on a regular basis, get rid of those. I depend on them because for neurological stuff, they are very calming and grounding. They calm the nerves. They're also super antiviral. So, of course, you want to lean into potatoes and winter squash and sweet potatoes. All of those types of foods are so great because not only are they calming and antiviral, but they have lots of glucose in them as well, and mineral salts. So they're a great combination. They have lots of great nutrients and things, and calories, because you'll notice as you start removing some of the unproductive foods, you need to replace them with a lot more healing foods, because the healing foods don't have many calories. They don't have microscopic amounts of fat, and it's enough for us. Our bodies don't require that much fat, but you know, you definitely want to work in that direction. So anyway, I'll drink to that one more time. So what else are we going to talk about? Okay, so we've talked about the foods to eliminate, the foods to incorporate. Now we want to also talk about doing a regular dose of those foods that you want to be eating regularly. So, in order to repair our adrenal glands, because if we're having symptoms, we know that there's a breakdown in our liver and our adrenal glands. So, in order to start the ball rolling with the repair work, of course, we start working on our liver, but it's also in tandem with trying to rebuild and repair our adrenal glands. Because if we neglect our adrenal glands, they are forced to work overtime. And unfortunately, when we go long periods of time without eating glucose and mineral salts, our adrenals have to kick in some adrenaline to help push us through. So, um, back when, before we all got sick, we had livers that were able to store extra glucose. That was one of the 2000 jobs that the liver has. And so when we have a healthy liver, it has plenty of stores. So if we go, more than say 2 or 3 hours without eating, no problem. Our liver's got plenty to dole out while we're between meals. But as the liver has gotten bogged down with absorbing all of the toxins and the pathogens, because the liver filters all of the blood. So as the liver gets burdened, and it has to eliminate some things, because it's like, I just can't do all of this, so I need to, what can I get by with not doing? So glucose, you're out of here. So no more glucose in the liver. So when we don't eat every 2 hours, then like the body's like, we need glucose, send glucose. The liver's like, can't help you. And so the adrenals go, don't worry about it, I got you. And they crank out some adrenaline so that we can push through, power through. So over time, though, the adrenals are like, all right, dude, like, liver, help me out here, because I'm done. And so the adrenals stop being able to produce the right amount of adrenaline. They sometimes produce way too much, and then sometimes they don't have any to get you through. And in addition to that function, the adrenals also, they compensate for so many other aspects of our body systems. So they help produce hormones, the estrogen, the progesterone, the testosterone. As we age, women, our ovaries kind of go into a little bit of a wind down, and the adrenal glands like fill in and pick up the ball and start producing what we need. So as they have gotten taxed and worn out, they're not doing that well anymore. They have to secrete an adrenaline to help the digestion. So often, again, the liver's down. So the liver's not doing its job with the digestion either. It's not able to manufacture the bile that we need to break down fats. It's not able to do its normal job to help out the digestive process. So again, the adrenals have to kick in some adrenaline to help move that through. So as you can see, it has a hand in so many different systems. So, and it's connected, it's in the endocrine system, which is connected to the thyroid. So again, it all starts to break down. When the liver and the adrenals start going to hell in a handbasket, then everything goes down. So there's one easy way that we can at least start rejuvenating the adrenal glands. We can give it glucose and mineral salts and potassium on a regular basis. So every 1 to 2 hours. I know it seems excessive, and I know it's hard to do if you're not used to it. I personally found it easy because I've had blood sugar issues since I was a kid, so I always had to eat really regularly. Otherwise, I would just crash. So, which indicates that my liver's been compromised for a long time, since childhood. So it just helps to know these little things and note, oh, okay, I have been sick for a pretty long time, and I didn't call it that. I didn't label myself as chronically ill back then, but looking back on it, that is absolutely what was going on. So in order to repair those adrenal glands, we have to give it a steady flow. So what's an adrenal snack is what is the term that medical medium coins. So a perfect adrenal snack would be an apple, a date, and a celery stick. So it has the glucose, it has the potassium, and it has the mineral salts. There's all sorts of different combinations you can do, like a banana wrapped in romaine lettuce, or just an extra celery juice or something like that. You can get creative. And honestly, if you can't do all of it, at least just do the fruit, because they're at least covering at least a couple of the bases at once. You're giving the glucose, and a lot of the fruits also have a good potassium source. So at least, and also minerals. So like you're getting almost everything you need from the fruit itself. But honestly, once you are compromised, then it's super important to give the extra celery juice or the leafy greens or whatever you need to do to help give yourself the minerals that you need for your brain. So speaking of which, so we've talked about the adrenal snacks. So we started with the hydration. Now we've covered the foods to eat and not to eat. We have now covered eating the desired foods very regularly. And it has to be over the long term. It's like you can't just do it one day and go, oh yeah, I'm good. Adrenals take a while to rejuvenate, similar to nerves. Nerves can take a minute to heal, and that's why sometimes I know from in my own healing journey, my neurological stuff was not the first thing that started healing that I noticed. It was more my digestion got so much better, my allergies and my chronic sinus problems gone pretty quickly, like after a couple months. But the neurological took longer because I had to bring the viral load down first and detox some of that out, as well as the metals, started getting some of those out. And then once enough of that has been eliminated, then your nerves finally get a free and clear like path to repairing. So you have to have, if the virus is still around and if the metals are still there, the nerve will never have a chance to rest and not be attacked. So we have to give it like some space and some rest in order to be able to rejuvenate. So those are the basic pinnacles. So of course, as you progress on this journey, keeping our fats low are also very important, because you know how we talked earlier about the blood being thickened, the lymphatic system having thick sludge in there instead of a stream that's moving. The fats work against what you're trying to accomplish. So the fat congeals and stays in your bloodstream, and then also serves as a block. So when you eat a high fat stuff and then you eat something afterwards, like the high in nutrients, then you want to drink your celery juice after a high fat meal or something, it almost is not as beneficial, because the fat in the blood is actually sort of like blocking the entry of the minerals and the glucose into the cells. So fat causes the insulin resistance that's in the blood. It blocks the cells from getting the nutrients that it needs. So it's a blocker for us to really move our healing forward. Plus, it then slows down the pathways. So not only are your cells not getting what they need in terms of glucose and minerals, but it's also then it can't detox and get rid of the stuff. So it just floats around and around and around instead of getting out. So, that's super important to start lowering fats. It took me a long time to be able to do it without my neurological and my blood sugar issues really ramping up. So that's something to be aware of. If you have blood sugar issues, it might be a struggle for you right now to go fat free. And I would never recommend anyone starting out this journey go fat free right off the bat anyway, because again, all of the blocks for the detox are being lifted when you eliminate that fat. So sometimes it can be like overwhelming because your liver's like, yay, I get a vacation from this having to produce bile and this other stuff, so I can just release like a lot more toxins. But of course, until your other systems like your lymphatic system and your blood are are moving properly, then you can't eliminate them. So they just float around and around and around. So, oh my gosh, that was one of the things I did to myself early on in my journey. Um, you know, I went way too fast. So I've been talking about the do's so far. Like, this is what we want to do. We want to do. Um, and now we're going to talk about the don'ts, because that's one thing that the books are not super explicit about. Anthony William has to write the books to suit the masses. He has to suit the large number of people, and so the average person is probably going to be fine just following the instructions in the book as written. But those of us who have extra sensitive systems and nervous systems that are extremely compromised, aka very toxic people who have a lot of toxins, need to go slower. So I jumped right into a cleanse about 5 weeks after I heard that initial podcast. Went through the holidays. It was like the end of November. So went through December, still doing my cheat days, whatever. Then come January 1st, I was like, all right, my first 369, I'm doing it, the original. And it was probably one of the worst experiences of my life because I felt incredibly ill. I felt like I was going to throw up. I had the worst headache imaginable. All of my neurological symptoms were like a 10. I was not sleeping. I didn't sleep a wink for the whole cleanse. I was pretty miserable, and I was so determined to be able to finish it. I was so convinced that this was going to heal me. And I thought just doing one cleanse was going to do it, by the way. I thought, cool, I'm going to do this cleanse. I'm going to be all better. It's going to be great. And in fact, what happened is I felt worse afterwards because I went too fast and I didn't realize what I was doing at the time. I was making my liver release a bunch of stuff, prompting it to release, and my lymphatic system and my bloodstream weren't prepared. I didn't have the pathways open and ready to go. So unfortunately, my liver released a bunch of junk. It floated around my bloodstream and went to my nerves and made me crazy. And then it wound up having to reabsorb it after the whole thing was over because it couldn't eliminate it. So it had to do two jobs. It had to eliminate it and then reabsorb it, which is actually worse for it because it's more taxing. You go through all that work and then you have to just wind up retaking it back in. That's already on an overburdened liver that's struggling. So, and not to mention, I honestly think that all of those toxins being released further damaged my nerves. So my nerves were already raw and exposed. And having those toxins swimming around and not going anywhere, I believe further injured them in that time. And so I made the mistake. I did that. And then I did a 369 cleanse for 5 consecutive months. So I did one cleanse a month for 5 months. And finally, by the end of it, and each time, it wasn't always as bad as the first time, but it was pretty bad each and every time. Finally, I came to the conclusion at the end of the 5th round, I was like, you know what? I think I just have to go back to like living a life that is like livable instead of being trying to revolve around all these cleanses, because I am not feeling well and the cleanses are making me feel worse. So I just took a break. After that, I just kind of allowed myself to try and, I would eat more fat because I was also trying to go fat free as much as possible. I even tried to go fat free and raw a little bit. Oh God, which is basically what happens on the original 369. 6 of the days are fat free and raw. So it is high levels of detox. And so the thing is that if you're ready for it, it's such a valuable tool. You're just like you're getting rid of so many toxins. But if you're not ready for it, it's not going to help you immediately move the needle. So that's my experience of it. I've heard other people who are very sensitive neurologically have similar experiences, and a lot of them were smart enough to stop doing the cleanse midway through without pushing through. Like, I would get so stubborn sometimes, but I mean, it is that tenacity and that belief, that strong belief that I had that did carry me through. So I didn't wind up actually reaching out and getting some help on my journey till about a year I finally did break down and work with a practitioner. And so she helped me see I needed to maybe dial it down, take the supplements down, get rid of the heavy metal detox smoothie for a while, let my nerves calm down. So those are some approaches that I wasn't aware were the right approach at that time. So hence here I am trying to sort of like be a guide for you to like use your own intuition, use your own body as the guide, as the barometer as to whether or not this is working or not working. A little bit of detox is to be expected. Let's face it. Getting rid of the garbage that's in there making us sick, it doesn't feel good. But there is a level of detox which is your sweet spot, which is that's going to be each individual is going to have to figure that sweet spot out for yourself. But I always say, as you're progressing through this journey, less is more, a little bit at a time, a baby step forward, not a leap, because you just you shock your body, and the body does not like to be shocked. Hence the whole liver having to reabsorb the toxins. I prompted it to release those toxins by putting it on a cleanse, and then it said, "Oh, what have you done to me?" So that's a big one. Whenever anybody asks me about starting celery juice, even, I say start small. Start 2 ounces. See how you feel. See what it does to your tummy. See if you can get off the toilet, because celery juice is so wonderful to start getting things cleaned up. So, in one of our biggest pathways to do that is, of course, through our uh, toilet time. So, of course, the sweating and our saliva and our earwax and our mucus and all of that are ways that we detox as well. So, sometimes when we're detoxing and eliminating stuff, you'll notice an increase in all of that kind of stuff too, that kind of discharge. Any of our openings in our bodies are basically pathways out of for detox. So, yeah, that's important to note. So, another mistake I made early on was probably limiting calories too much. When I was doing those cleanses, especially, I was eating what he had written down on the page, and honestly, it wasn't enough for me. I needed to be eating more of those foods. And I didn't realize, oh, you can eat as many as you want of those foods. Um, so similarly, even not on a cleanse, you should never let yourself get to the point where you're like hungry beyond control. Like you need to always, because of the adrenal snack thing we touched on, hopefully you will allow that to happen. But I know we're so conditioned to go, oh, I had a banana, I can't have another one. I mean, Lord knows nowadays I eat 6 bananas in a day easily, like without even batting an eye. So 3 apples, 6 bananas, like massive amounts of these foods that I was conditioned to eat one a day. Like, I don't know why, but it just seemed weird to eat more than one. So, getting over the fruit fear and letting yourself eat as much as you want. Eat, I've eaten probably a good pound of potatoes at a sitting, no problem. Like, now again, I don't put fat on them, so they are not as calorie dense as when you add things onto them that are more highly dense in calories and such. You can't do that. But when you're going fat free or very low fat, you absolutely have to compensate with large amounts of those healing foods. So just something to bear in mind. I didn't do that well either. I wound up getting losing a lot of weight over that the course of time when I did the first 5 cleanses. Um, so the thing is that I was like kind of happy about it to begin with, but it wasn't healthy. It didn't feel healthy to me. It felt bad the whole time. So lately I've been noticing. I think part of this whole process of when we are eliminating toxins, I've heard other people say sometimes as they are eliminating toxins and metals out of their body, sometimes it is stored in fat for a short time, and you don't lose that fat right away. So the whole fat um, is an indicative of your liver's health. When your liver is processing things properly and can release the right amount of toxins and can do all of its jobs, it is able to help you metabolize that fat and then move that out as well. So weight issues are always a liver issue, and never, like, it's not so much about like, oh, I'm eating too many calories or this or that. It's that your liver can't process it. And again, staying fat free or low fat is a great way to do that. So is to help your liver to be able to then be able to metabolize fat better, because if you give it a break and don't demand that it does it every meal, then it's going to love you for that in the long run. So another thing I would say is this is a journey. This is a marathon. This is a lifestyle. For me, I don't ever see myself going back to my old ways of eating, just because I never want to feel like I felt sick wise. So, but you can't beat yourself up. Like this is a learning curve. You're learning something brand new that you've never even heard about before. This is all brand new information. You're trying to recalibrate your brain to recognize a new way of looking at food and looking at the functions of the body. It's things that we've never been told before. And all of us have emotional ties to food. I know I used to use food as a soothing mechanism. I used it for energy, yes, but also to soothe myself when I was having a bad day or having an emotional issue. And there's actually, according to medical medium information, there's a good reason that happens, because honestly, when we experience an upset or stress or trauma, our brain overheats. And in order to cool down our brain, we have to consume glucose. In that it sends the signal out. I need glucose. I need glucose. So you interpret that signal as, oh, I need to eat a pizza, or I need to eat some nachos or a chocolate cake. But in fact, it's wanting the critically clean carbohydrates, which are the wonderful fruits, the potatoes and sweet potatoes and winter squash, and that's the kind of glucose that it's really calling for. But we're unfortunately in bad habits of eating the other types of sugars and things. So that's why our brain, will signal that the cravings sometimes, because we just need to cool down that brain with some glucose. So recognizing those things is going to be like so important for you too. Giving yourself some grace, saying, "Good job. You have been working so hard, and it's not easy giving up our old ways of coping. We've had to like relearn how to cope and how to be in this world, and there's so many obstacles to doing that for yourself, because our social norms around eating meals together and family gatherings and restaurants and this and that, none of it is setting us up for healthful living. All of it is set up for making the pitfalls happen, with the bad ingredients, with the canola oil at every turn. So this you have to be a vigilant warrior in this path, and you have to also just be your own biggest fan and your own biggest supporter, and thank yourself for even trying to make these changes, and be kind to yourself. Find new ways of coping. Take walks in nature, do some meditations, do a nice relaxing bath, listen to some soft music, find some funny videos to watch, or a funny movie or TV show that you really like a lot. Just like give yourself rewards and be kind to yourself. Take a nap. A nap? What? I could never. Oh, yeah. Give yourself permission to check some things off that to-do list. Let them go on the back burner for now, and let's make you the priority for a while. Because I would wager that everybody here has put themselves last at some point, including myself. I used to put everyone else first and not even think of myself as a priority, like what I really needed. And again, all of the whole not disappointing people, being a pleaser, all of those things kind of play into the whole mentality that gets you there. And so this is a makeover from head to toe, guys. It's like, I promise though, at the end of it, you're going to be new and improved, and you're going to be better than ever, because you will have fought through the journey. You will have gained not only spiritual strength and resilience, but there is so much that comes from fully appreciating and experiencing a body that is functioning and that is healthy and the way it's supposed to be. I don't know if you can remember what it used to feel like, or if you've ever felt like a body that feels good, because we're all so conditioned and to accept symptoms and dysfunction as that's just the way it is. As we get older, you get, things start breaking down, blah, blah, blah. That's not the case. That's a lie. We are taught to accept these things as truth, when in fact, our bodies are not designed to break down and give us pain and dysfunction towards the end of our lives. Unfortunately, it's all these toxins and these pathogens that add up. And of course, when you get into your 70s and your 80s, if you haven't detoxed any of them out, yeah, they're going to start plaguing you if they haven't already done so. So that's the thing. Um, we just have to redo our our belief system, and we have to just believe that the information is here. It is the right information, that God has our backs. You will find an amazing connection as the toxins start evading and leaving out of your brain. Suddenly, you'll have a lot more access to your intuition and to the divine. You'll be able to experience joy. You'll be able to experience peace that when you're toxic, those toxins are constantly weighing on you and irritating your nerves. And so until they're gone, you don't even realize, wow, that was a mess. That was hard to deal with. And then once it goes away, you're like, okay, that's what it's supposed to be like. That's right. So it's our divine right. You know, every podcast that Anthony William does, he says at the end of it, he says, I believe in you and I know that you can heal. So I think about that phrase a lot. He knows I can heal. I know I can heal. I did it. I mean, I'm doing it. I'm not all the way there, but I have a lot of faith in this way of doing it because I did not know if I would ever be able to speak normally again. I didn't know if I was stuck with those crazy neurological symptoms forever. So, you know, it's proof to me. I have experienced a miracle for myself. So, I'm here to just pass that along to you guys, give you hope, give you maybe some guidance on how to do it. Um, you know, um, we're going to open up the floor for some questions. Maybe what a good way to do it would be if you want to put in the chat if you want to come on and ask a question or something like that. I also want to get some feedback from you guys because you may or may not know, but I am a health coach. I've been in school at the Institute for Integrative Nutrition and have been learning all about the coaching aspect of applying this information. So I spent a good couple years studying just the medical medium stuff, but then I realized I just probably need some tools to help me become a more effective coach as well as, um, you know, implement the information that I actually want to communicate. So I'm trying to create for myself. What does that look like? Of course, I have packages that people can do on an individual basis. If they want to work with me on a monthly basis, we could meet a couple times a month for 3 to 6 months. Probably would be a good basis for that. But also, I had thought about doing some group coaching, which would be super like very inexpensive, like, you know, maybe a $10 fee for per session if you want to just drop in and have some group coaching where we can all sit together, well, via Zoom, and discuss what's going on, what are the challenges, what have we been doing, what are we trying, what's some new approaches, some maybe just have some fresh eyes on the whole thing. You absolutely don't you know, you can do it on your own. You don't absolutely need someone. You can get all of the information that you need from the books, but it's just the nuances. And it's, you know, I often wonder to myself, if I had started with a practitioner or someone helping me earlier on, would that have made a difference in the rate of my healing? Would I have done that first year better? So it's just a question, and I know for a fact I could have at least suffered less. So I'm just trying to prevent you guys from suffering and going, this is hideous, I'm never doing this again. Because you got to stick with it. You know, we've been collecting toxins for however many years we've been walking this planet, and we're not, the liver can't release them all at once because it would kill us. So if the liver said, oh yeah, you got 50 years worth of toxins in there, let's go ahead and dump those all out, I'm good, your brain and your heart would die. So the liver's trying to protect you and keep you safe and dole it out a little bit by little bit that it can, and eventually you get there. To oh, my cat's coming to visit too. What do you know? So anyway, so I see. Let's see. I see. Some questions here. Someone lost me on the screen. Hopefully, you guys. I don't know. Hopefully, you've been able to see me through this whole time. I don't know. I have one question here that says, or it's from Mary. When you got your voice back, did it happen sporadically or all at once? So it happened, I want to say, little by little. So I know there was like a chat earlier on in one of the groups that I saw about morning time being the best time of day for the your voice. When I woke up in the morning time, always was my best time of the day. When my first few things out of my mouth was like the best it was going to sound the whole day. So uh, back in April, I guess, of this year, I started waking up and I would have a couple of sentences that sounded like completely normal. Like, oh, like, wow, that's pretty normal. So, it was interesting. So it would be a little bit more every day. So it would be like two sentences, then turned into four, which turned into 20 minutes, which then turned into like till noon. Then all of a sudden, all day I could talk. And then like the phone used to kill me. So like, like I used to do really well at the beginning of a phone call. And then by the end, I was like pooping out. But so it over say a month's time, it came back that way. So hopefully that answers your question. Let's see. How long did it take? So I was on the protocols for 2.5 years before that started to happen for me. So yeah, medical toxins. Whenever we've had medical procedures or a lot of pharmaceuticals and things, that's a collection. It's like it adds to our collection of toxins for sure, but it doesn't mean that it's harder to get rid of than other toxins. So the great news is that they can be detoxed out. So let's see. So Mary also says she has high stress, so and high cortisol. So of course that is an adrenal issue for you. So that is something you're going to have to experiment with, trying to find a way to handle it better, to take a walk, to do all of the things I was talking about earlier, and see, you know, who see what you see. You know what I mean? You're gonna have to just find your own way. I can't really give you a prescription for eliminating stress, because that's one of our earthly conditions. We all have stress to some degree, and managing that and figuring out how to cope with that is like the first order of business, because we can't heal our adrenal glands if we're constantly asking them to dump adrenaline. So that's going to be a key for us. So let's see. Hard for you to lose weight and toxins or in fat. Good. You eliminated toxic people. That's good. again, the weight issue is liver related. So as you heal your liver, I urge people to sort of think about um, heal this whole journey as healing their liver instead of like searching for a number on the scale, because the body has infinite wisdom, and ultimately it will eliminate the toxins and the fat as it deems necessary. So we can't second guess. Our bodies are much smarter than we are. So we can't dictate it, we can't control it. We just have to show it love, nurture it, feed it the best way we can, and realize that then the weight will come off. So eventually. It may not happen right away, or it might. I don't know. It's it depends on, everybody's so different. So, and everyone has different levels of toxins, and the toxins are in different parts of their liver. So there's three layers of the liver. There's the outer part of the liver, the midsection, and then the core. And some of the most lethal stuff is in the core because it hides it way far away when it's really toxic stuff. So it's hard for me to say, what you have in there. I don't know. I don't even know what I have in there either. So hopefully, as we heal our bodies, then all of it heals together. That's the good thing. These protocols help everything. So it's not just like, oh, I have to do this protocol for this symptom and this other protocol for this symptom. No, no, no. It all works together to really propel you forward. Now, granted, each pathogen has its own idiosyncrasies, and you can target it with certain foods or certain supplements to try and get at that one type of pathogen. But overall, this diet, this lifestyle is a better way to describe it, helps all of the pathogens, all of the unwanted things that are in your body. It helps get rid of it. So all right, Tanya says, I take a lot of supplements for my voice. Should I stop taking these? Also CBD oil. So I think we had talked about the other ingredients for your that are in your supplements. So you have to be super vigilant about reading labels. And of course, Medical Medium has a whole directory on his website of the ones he recommends. So like some people, find that some of the recommendations are more expensive than other supplements, which is true at times. Personally, I have tried to stick with his recommendations because, again, I was trying to follow his thing by the letter. The only thing I can say is if you want to try supplements that aren't on his list, just read the ingredients. You don't want things like natural flavors or any sort of flavoring in there, any sort of preservative or MSG product. You don't want corn or soy or maltodextrin, or those type of things are code name for gluten hidden in things. And all of these things are used often as a preservative to help extend the shelf life of these things. So that's why they're in there, but that doesn't help us because all of those things are the MSG aspects, the different codes. I mean, food manufacturers got smart a few years ago. They learned to not say I have MSG. They've learned to put other names for it as code names to kind of slide one in on us a little bit. So natural flavors and any kind of flavoring. Nutritional yeast, unfortunately, is loaded with MSG. All of that stuff is code for MSG, and MSG is super antagonistic to the nervous system. So if you have any sort of neurological stuff going on, any migraines or neuropathies or SD or any of that, you want to avoid MSG things in your food because otherwise it's, it just irritates the nerves more. so they can't heal. CBD oil. Anthony William doesn't love CBD. He doesn't like marijuana. I don't know if you find that it um, makes you feel better or if you notice an improvement. I did CBD oil in the beginning as well. And I think I felt like maybe it made me feel relaxed. I'm not quite sure if it helped my voice issue or not, but um, again, it's an oil, so you're adding fat into your diet with that as well. So you're giving your liver a little chore to do when you take it. So that's another consideration. Um, so I would say if you can look at maybe start weaning off of that, that's probably for the best. But if you're, again, baby steps, one thing at a time. If you feel like you still need it or you enjoy it or it helps you, then by all means, keep it for a little while longer. Um, so Mary's asking, how about exercise? So exercise is a funny little tricky one because, of course, exercise is great for moving our lymphatic system and helps us. It basically works as the pump. Our heart is the pump for our bloodstream, but we have no pump for our lymphatic system. So movement in the body is what does move it along. So it's good for that. However, sometimes exercise that's intense when you have adrenal fatigue can be too much and can cause the adrenal glands to have to dump adrenaline, and you wind up kind of defeating the purpose because of all the adrenaline that's being released is not only feeding pathogens that are in your body, but debilitating the liver further and damaging other nerves and the pancreas and the brain. So that adrenaline is so toxic and so like horrible for us on so many levels that the benefit from the exercise is sort of counteracted by the adrenaline piece. So here's one way of figuring that out for yourself is if you feel taxed after you exercise, like are you like pretty zapped? In that case, I think you probably have overexerted. Um, so I would say perhaps that light exercise, maybe some light yoga, walking. If you want to do a little bit of weights, I think that's fine as long as I wouldn't go heavy weights. I would just do some light weights and see how you feel. And again, start small. Start with your routine with just you know some light weights, a few repetitions, and see how you feel. And then as you feel like okay, I'm okay and I'm not overexerted, then you can begin adding in more and extending your program a little bit more. But definitely walking and gentle yoga are two great ways to sort of just get the body moving. Oh, and furthermore, rebounding is a fantastic way to move the lymphatic system. So a rebounder is like that little mini trampoline, and you don't even have to bounce very high. You can just your feet don't have to leave the bed of the little trampoline. You can just kind of move up and down, and just that little motion helps move your lymphatic system. So that's one that a lot of people who are walking this path use as a tool, not just for exercise but also to move their lymphatic system. So somebody's asking, Tanya asked, what is the 369 protocol? So the Liver Rescue 369 cleanse the is a 9-day cleanse. So there's now 3 versions of it. So the original cleanse was presented in the Liver Rescue book, but then Cleanse to Heal came out after that, and it has some modifications. So it has a more gentle version, which is called the Simplified 369. It has the original in there, and then it also has the advanced. So for the advanced, it includes a heavy metal detox along with the other protocols. So, for instance, let's just think about the simplified. The simplified, I would say, is fat free, all for the 9 days. The final day of all 3 of those are just juices. So you start off with, the celery juice and the lemon water, and then you have, some watermelon juice, some blended papaya, some orange juice, cucumber apple juice. So that's the final day, is to flush all the toxins out. So earlier on in the simplified, you can have some cooked meals like lunch and dinner if you want to. It adds a lot of apples. Apples are very detoxifying and help escort metals out of your body. So all 3 of the cleanses have like 3 apples a day or something like that. So, and all 3 of them include celery juice, smoothies. The difference is that the simplified has cooked fat-free dinners and lunches, perhaps, if you want to do that, versus the original has cooked the first 3 days, but then raw, except for the next 6 days, but except for day 7, you're allowed a couple potatoes. So, no, it's not yeah, it is a day 7, I think. Okay. It's been a while since I've done it, so I think it is day 7. Anyway, it got me thinking. And then the advanced, of course, is specifically, I've never done the advanced, so I keep hoping that one day my liver will be ready for me to do that. So I'm thinking the simplified is very similar to how I eat regularly anyway, so that one is not too much of a stretch. It just adds some teas in the evening, and then the apples. Make sure you get the apples, lots of asparagus, lots of Brussels sprouts. Those are both foods that are very supportive to the liver. So lots of leafy greens, salads. The original 369 has salad for lunch and dinner for a few of those days, which by the end of that, you're like, wow, I have to eat another salad. Your jaw gets tired from chewing. So, but there are amazing results, and people have had, have propelled their healing, forward. So, anyway, what else? Green or red apples? He's not a huge fan of the green apples. I don't really hear him recommending green apples much at all, because some of the properties that help the rejuvenation and the detoxification are in the red apples. So I know we've been brainwashed to think that green apples are preferable because they have less sugar, but again, that whole theory is silly. So Andrea is asking, how do I know if I'm overdoing regarding too much celery juice or supplements? Because you don't feel well. So if you're having a lot of symptoms come up, and they get more intense, and symptoms that you can't handle, maybe you need to back off a little bit. So to find that spot where there's going to be maybe a mild headache for a day or something, that like typical detox that you would experience on a cleanse or whatever, is a slight headache, maybe just feeling a little tired. I don't know. I got such like nausea my first cleanses just because my stomach was a wreck. So all those pathogen had to be detoxed out, and they don't go peacefully. They want to kick and scream and cause issues all the way. So, um, anyway, uh, what else? What else do we have? Let's see. Okay. Okay. What would your typical daily meal consist of? My day of food. All right, so let's talk about today. So 32 ounces of lemon water, 32 ounces of celery juice, 32 ounces of cucumber, apple, asparagus juice. I add in extra juices whenever I can because, again, that lymphatic thing is huge, and I know my lymphatic system has been so blocked. So then I had a nice big salad with romaine. I think I had some fruit in between too. I had some apricots and banana, and then I had a salad, lots of romaine, tomatoes, cucumbers, peppers. I like to put green peas on my salad. I don't know what it is. It's good for hair growth in case anybody has thin hair like me. And I use like the juice from an orange and like a half of a lime and a clove of garlic, and then I use lots of honey. That's the dressing that I use most days. So that's lunch. Then I made a big pot of soup before I came on here. I haven't eaten it yet. So I had a couple of steamed potatoes that were just sitting in my fridge. So I was running out of time earlier, so I ate them cold like an apple, just like nothing on them, just plain, but they do so much for me in terms of glucose and just calming my nerves and such. So then probably when I get off this call, I made a soup out of onion. So I had broth, and I sauteed the onion and garlic, and then I added in potatoes and cauliflower and mushrooms and cooked them in my Instant Pot. And when I get done, I probably will use my immersion blender and like zip it so it gets to be like a creamy kind of soup. And I added a bunch of spices into. I'm trying to get off the salt as well. So I added some maple syrup. Maple syrup is a great antidote for salt, ironically. I added cumin, coriander, garlic powder, onion powder, cayenne pepper, and that might be all seasoning wise. So probably have that, and then maybe a banana before bed. So a banana is got tryptophan in it, which helps you sleep. It has all that lovely glucose and potassium and all the good stuff to help kind of sustain you through the night. Because believe it or not, sometimes we wake up in the middle of the night too because our body is clamoring for glucose. So if you have a blood sugar issue, like I do, you need to feed it all the time. I mean, sometimes I even eat one in the middle of the night. If I wake up in the middle of the night and I'm struggling, I will take some more melatonin, and I will usually, it's so weird because if I'm having a rough night, I'll drink a full 32-ounce lemon water overnight. And but I feel like it's such a great idea because if I'm having a rough night, it means the toxins are needing to get weeded out. And so I got to help them as best I can to do that. So, and then, this is my second celery juice of the day. So, I generally drink 2 of those, sometimes 32 ounces each, sometimes a 32 ounce in the morning and then a 16 ounce in the afternoon. Just depends on what I'm feeling like. I've alternated my routine over the years. So anyway, what else? Can I eat fish or chicken? Yes, you can. So okay, here's a word of warning about the fish. Um, Fish, generally speaking, is in the ocean where there's lots of mercury, and they tend to absorb the mercury. So, unfortunately, with neurological issues, I personally might think of taking a break from the fish for a while. Although you can eat wild caught salmon and sardines, and I think there's another one that he recommends that you can eat. But it has to be wild caught. It can't be farmed. And you definitely don't want to have the bigger fishes like the tuna. Those are very high in mercury. So, and as far as the chicken goes, you can eat free range organic chicken. Um, but as we talked about the fat earlier being sort of an impediment to all of the process of eliminating the toxins and such, meat has high fat content, whether or not we realize it. We've been programmed to think lean meats don't have fat, but in fact, that's not true. Even if we cut off the visible fat, it's marbled in between all the with the meat. So it is still got a lot of it's high fat regardless. So it's not that it's like it feeds viruses or anything like that. It does not. However, it's not a healing food. It doesn't help us with our mission of trying to eliminate stuff. So if you want to, I would say reduce it to maybe once a day, maybe at dinner only, and down the pike, if you feel like you can get rid of more and maybe make it every other day or once a week or whatever, eventually start maybe tapering it down, seeing how you feel. Because in order to get to the finish line, which is what we're all trying to do, we gotta give as many like positive things, in our favor of healing. So we do more things that detoxify and more things that are healing than are burdening. So the meat is semi-burdening because also the liver has to kick in some bile and help to digest it. And then often the adrenals, because the liver's weak, have to kick in to move that through our digestive tract because our digestion is weak. So it's sort of a chain reaction. But absolutely, he's not against eating meat, and if you need it for now, then keep it in as you weed out the things that absolutely feed the viruses. Those are the first priority. So down the pike, if you can eliminate. Sorry, my dog's coughing. You heard my cat, now my dog. And the doorbell. You've gotten the full show tonight. Anyway, so let's see. Marcia says, many of the foods which you recommend, such as apples, are high in FODMAP foods. I have severe IBS, and are there no alternatives? All right, so again, this is going to be contrary of all you've heard about the FODMAP stuff, because any sort of adverse reaction that you have to some of those foods is not because they're inflammatory foods. It's because they are highly detoxifying foods and they are angering your pathogens that are in your gut. For IBS, it's largely strep that's in your gut that is causing the discomfort and the such. How we talked earlier about the bile being weak, and then because the bile is weak from the liver, the hydrochloric acid in the stomach gets weak because it's trying to compensate to make up for the lack of bile, and then it runs out of steam. So then it's weak, and then that's when the pathogens can grow in your gut, and you wind up developing symptoms like IBS because of those pathogens wreaking havoc. So unfortunately, we've been taught to eliminate those healing foods, which again, I realize that I'm telling you something that is contrary to what you've been told before, but there's a lot of information on IBS on his website. You can just like Google IBS medical medium, and some stuff will pop up. There's a podcast, there's articles you can read about it that help you kind of have a better understanding of that. So if apples still cause you problems, like if you physically feel in distress when you eat apples, then maybe we'll lay off of those for a while and not hit those right off the bat until we get you healed up a little better. In other words, some things you can start to do to heal your gut are to drink some ginger water or tea on a daily basis. Ginger is super like calming to the digestive tract, and it also is anti-pathogenic, so it's killing the bad pathogens at the same time. And so that's a great one. Aloe vera water, or adding big chunks of the gel from those leaves that are commercial food grade leaves you buy in the grocery store. You can add to your smoothie or add to water and just drink as this plain thing that also like calms and helps to eliminate the pathogens. So anyway, papaya, banana, mango, potatoes. Those are all very anti-spasmodic. Pears, all of them calm the nerves of the gut and help gently move out the pathogens too. So I see another probiotics. So Anthony William has a couple of probiotics listed on his directory. He says that most of the ones on the market are not very beneficial because they get killed within the hydrochloric acid in your stomach. So he has a couple of brands that he says actually can survive the stomach and get to the ileum of the small intestine, to that's where they set up shop and start doing you some good. Another thing that he really advocates for is eating fresh produce that is either from your own garden or grown locally, so that you can benefit from the microorganisms that are living on the external surface of the fruit or vegetable. So when we ingest those foods, then those microorganisms, he calls them elevated biotics, can actually survive the hydrochloric acid of the stomach and set up shop in the ileum of the small intestine. Now that's crucial too, not only just for your gut health, but also for B12 production. I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but we don't manufacture our own B12. The microorganisms in our small intestine ileum are the ones that manufacture the B12 in our bodies. So the more elevated biotics we have in there, the better chance of getting some B12. And B12 is such a crucial supplement because it is necessary for every metabolic process that happens in the body requires B12. So most of us don't eat fresh. We eat groceries that are shipped across the country or for 5 days on a truck and sit in the grocery store for another week before we actually eat them. So the benefits that people used to get from eating fresh fruits and vegetables from their gardens and such, it doesn't happen as much anymore because we don't have access to fresh produce in our backyard the way people used to do. So the more we can seek those out. I know I have an herb garden. I was so lucky to be gifted a tower garden. So I have some microgreens, some herbs, and some tomatoes that I grow on my back porch. And then also I'm just tempted. I really, really want to get an above ground like bed in my backyard so I can start growing even more things, because like that's so key. You can also grow sprouts on your windowsill. I've never done it, but lots of my friends do that all the time. It's super easy. Apparently, I just sometimes feel like I've got so many things to do every day. Can I add one more? I don't know. So, but it's highly recommended because those sprouts always have all those elevated biotics, and they're super easy. You don't have to have like a whole backyard or anything to do it. You can just do it on a windowsill. So, let's see, rice and no food. So rice is okay if you don't have IBS or something that's strep related. So there are certain symptoms that are caused by strep. So IBS is one of them. UTIs, chronic sinus problems, allergies, um, bacterial vaginosis, or yeast infections. Those are all strep related things. Acne is another one. So if you have any of those things going on in your body, rice is not going to be your friend. Um, the better grains to eat are millet, quinoa, and oats are all grains that he blesses and has in some of his recipes and stuff like that. So again, grains aren't the most healing foods. I could, debate about that, but as you're bridging off of the no foods, you're going to need to cling on to something that kind of feels like it sticks to your ribs in the beginning. I understand that. So if you need to keep the grains in and, do that, all of that stuff while you're healing, that's okay. It's just you want to try and pick the ones that are least feeding for our pathogens. And if you don't have strep related stuff, then yeah, try to be gluten free. Yeah, so you can eat some brown rice or whatever. So yeah, and again, vinegar. So Mary's asking, what about vinegar? Vinegar is not ideal. It is unfortunately, that whole apple cider vinegar trend, which I did it too, is very bad because it basically pickles your liver. So the way it reacts to a cucumber is similar to the way it reacts to a human cell. Unfortunately, it sort of, instead of helping detoxify our body, the vinegar is dehydrating, and it also drives the toxins further in versus like drawing them out. And so, yeah, vinegar is not ideal. Although I have to admit, like occasionally I will have a little bit in a ketchup that's pretty clean, but it's prepackaged. Again, vinegar is used in a lot of things because it's like a preservative. Now it's preferable over the MSG versions of preservatives, but it's still not ideal. However, I didn't even like bring it up tonight because I don't want to overwhelm you guys. I know I've already given you a ton of information. Yes, lemon is always a better choice. I know people do make pickles and like fermented things, or not fermented, but things like pickles. I guess it is fermented. Anyway, with lemon juice instead of vinegar. So that is a preferable way to do it. So anyway, we've been doing this a couple hours, so you guys have stuck with me, and I appreciate it so much. Any last questions or anybody here? Show me type of number 1 in the chat if you would want to try and do a group coaching kind of thing, or something like that. Another thing I want to mention too is that for anybody who just wants to have a consult, I would do that for free. We could just kind of go over the basics and sort of give you a plan of action to do it. And, we could, go from there, get you at least rolling with it. So, Cool. I see a couple ones popping up there, so that's awesome. So maybe I'll put something like that into the works and see what we can work out schedule wise. So if it's, a group of us, we'll have to find a time that works for everybody so that we can make the most of it. So anyway, thank you so much for joining me here, and I can't wait to see all of your stuff. I think you guys are all members of my Medical Medium 101 support group on Facebook. If you aren't, by chance, look it up and join. So, you know, uh, hopefully we'll have lots of good information floating around, and always a open-ended conversation in the group as well. So anyway, you guys are awesome, and I so appreciate you being here. And so I'll just see you on Facebook, and hopefully we'll meet again. I'm gonna maybe do another one of these um, Zoom calls in the next at least month or so. It might be next week. I'm not sure. I gotta look at and nail down my schedule. I wasn't sure. I was gonna wait and see how tonight's went and see what I needed to do differently or whatever. So I guess another thing would be, if I do another Zoom like this, what day or time works for you, and what time zone are you in? Because I just sort of randomly picked something that worked well for me, but I do have some flexibility. I don't know if you guys have a preference for a different time or day. Well, let me know if Eastern Standard Time evening. Okay, good. So I'm in the right ballpark with tonight. That's good. All right, cool. Well, I will just keep in touch then, you guys, and you have a wonderful evening and happy healing. Hopefully it'll go smoothly for you, and I can't wait to, hear all the testimonials. We'll be doing all of your interviews once you guys are all on the mend, and you're going to be raving about this and be like, I am a new person. So I can't wait. All right. We'll talk to you later, guys. Bye.